you have 6 squiggles, 2 of which are fuzzies, and you have 4 normals, and all but one fuzzy was bought 3 years ago. Very, very, very or very close to when you started deploying ETH and found the art NFTs. What thesis did you have around the squiggle at the time of purchase, and has that changed?
Well, when I first saw squiggles, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't fully get them. Right. I was like, what is this? And I was like, okay, that's cool. I mean, because my entry point into generative art was really through CryptoPunks. I first started buying CryptoPunks, and it was really through being in that Discord that I learned about Art Blocks, which was a relatively new platform at that time. By the time I got involved, the Ringers Mint had just concluded around that time frame. And when I saw Ringers, they really captivated me and pulled me into this whole idea of algorithmic art. And I was like, this is absolutely fascinating stuff. And from the rest is kind of history from there. I started buying Ringers. The first piece I ever bought was Genesis Zero by DCA, which was also a day one set. And so I'm excited to have that piece in my collection. And I really just started collecting stuff that I thought aesthetically was very interesting to me. And Ringers were kind of number one in that. And I got some squiggles after that. And because I started to think more about, okay, well, what is this squiggle really? Because it's just like a squiggly line. It's got some colors, right? And I was just like, yeah, artistically, is it interesting? I was like, it is interesting. And I've come to appreciate it a lot more over time, frankly. But what squiggles represented is so much more than just art, right? I mean, squiggles are representative to me of the entire generative art movement in a pretty significant way. They were the first set created on Art Blocks, which has become an incredibly important platform for generative art. They're by Snowfro, who is one of the most important creators and business leaders in the entire crypto space, certainly in the NFT space. And what I came to understand, and especially this was before the formation of SquiggleDAO, but I started to view them as almost like a social token, where this is a way to participate in it. And they were pretty cheap for a long time too, by the way. I mean, like certainly a lot cheaper than they are now. You could get one for an ether or less. I wish, of course, in hindsight, I would have bought like 100 of them and just like sat on them. I didn't have that kind of foresight. Some other people did, and good for them. They deserve that. So for me, I just decided to collect some that I thought appealed to me aesthetically. And to me, I really love the fuzzy squiggles. Again, one of those situations where it's not the rarest or anything like that, right? But I was like, they're beautiful to me. Like artistically, I think they're really interesting. I've always been a fan of like impressionist art as well. And they kind of like evoke that kind of energy to me, especially when you view them within the context of the rest of the set. I came really close to buying like a hyper squiggle. And I remember I was chatting with D's and DMs, and I was like, I didn't know a lot about squiggles at that point. So I was relying on some of the people in the punks Discord to help me think through it. And I don't remember what it was. It was definitely a fraction of what it costs now. And I was like, do you think this is a good buy? And by the time I heard back from him, someone had already bought it. And that slipped right through my fingers. So,
Well, it's official. You heard it here first. DC is part of the fuzzy fam.
100%.
I'm a big, it was actually the first, I don't hold it anymore, but the first squiggle I ever bought was a fuzzy for that reason.
Nice.
And Von Mises was actually helping me with some of those buys. And, I've acquired a number of different fuzzies. Fortunate to have some like really nice ones in the collection. So I too, like you, was drawn to it. It's almost the softer texture just made it unique amongst the collection, but like still distinctively a part of the overall collection, which is the squiggles. So
yeah, and just expanding on the thesis a little bit behind squiggles, I think squiggles are interesting because of that social fabric layer to them, but also with there being 10,000 of them, right, which is big for, and that was also part of the reason why I didn't buy them at first, because like there's so many of them. And then I was like, but over time, it's like that's actually an asset because it allows you to develop a bigger network of collectors. And of course, it wouldn't work for every collection, but it works beautifully. I mean, this is just like the casual genius of Snowfro, really. I don't know if he like fully thought all this out and like was like, one day this is going to become this huge thing where tens of thousands of collectors all over the world are going to want to participate in this. But he had the foresight to have this first collection be something that was big, so it could be relatively inclusive. But within that large set dynamic, it's kind of like you see in CryptoPunks, there's almost a semi fungibility on the floor of those kinds of sets, which engenders their use as this financial collateral, as something that people were trading. So that also continues to drive interest into this. And of course, there's going to be people like me who just sit on them and hold them. But there is this dynamic nature to the market of something like Squiggles that doesn't exist for a lot of sets, because it's just the supply gets locked up and it is what it is. And I mean, look at something like Ringers and Fidenza now. When one of those moves, people will like, it's almost an event, right? Whereas Squiggles are trading more regularly, but I think that just kind of makes them economically, when you talk about a collateral perspective and from a quote unquote investment perspective, it just makes them a lot more interesting in some respects.